Hey, welcome to everybody. Today is a very special day because we are going to talk about dream bigger and create an action plan with the Disney strategy. And in this special event, like because we always dream big, but do we focus on having an action plan? But even a lot of time we do focus on action plan, but do we focus on taking actual action steps? But the strategy is the most important. So let's welcome Kathryn Perry, who's going to guide us with the Disney strategy.
Hey, Mikesh, thank you so much, and welcome everybody to the Big Vision Mastermind. Now, if you're watching this module, it's very likely that you have just finished the 7 modules. Let me get to this one. The 7 modules of the Big Vision Mastermind, where we really wanted to expand out your thinking and start getting some clarity. And we talked so much and started teaching you really about having to move your internal positioning so that you can begin to see yourself and your potential in a new way, and just start expanding your sense of possibility, to start saying yes to those little inner whisperings and connecting to your intuition. Well, this is the next natural step, because once you've expanded all the way out there to where you could possibly go, which is fun, it's pleasurable, it's one of my favorite games, it always comes back to how do we take all of those big elements and bring it down into smaller, bite-sized, actionable steps, even if you've made the commitment to taking massive action. Maybe there's a lot that you want to do in a short time, but you still need to be able to lay out those steps in a way that makes sense for you, and to put that inner critic to work for you. So often we get into that vision, we want to take action, and I know this has happened to me and has happened to every person who, every entrepreneur, where they see it, they feel it, the path looks clear, you sit down, you start to do it, and there's this big freeze, and you go, what is the problem? Because I see what to do. But there's oftentimes this little missing step, or there is a critical piece that has not been addressed. And it's not really fear as much as, think of it as an unresolved equation that is stopping you from moving forward. Well, what we're going to be teaching you today is how to get the vision, hammer out a working plan, look at some of those unsolved unknowns, get those dealt with, and keep yourself in that creative flow so that by the time you get done with this process, you'll be able to create on demand a clear working plan. So, pardon me, what will often happen to us, and my PowerPoint decided to wait here. Just a moment, excuse me. There we go. So often the biggest challenges to achieving our goals are, one, straight up no ideas, which as a creative person, for me, that is physically painful to not be able to have ideas. So you'll just nothing is coming to mind. You just run into blocks in your thinking. It just seems like every idea that you have, the minute you start to think it through, it just falls apart. It's a horrible space to be in. Or maybe you got the exact opposite, where you have just way too many ideas. There's no focus or strategy. You just are just this idea-making machine, and it's so fun to create ideas, which this is actually probably one of the things I've had to really suffer with and overcome. What do you do with all these really great ideas when you are in that creative mode? And I want to give you some strategies on how to deal with that at the end of this. But then maybe you have a good idea, it feels right, it looks right, you've done some research, but then it's like you can't quite get yourself into those first steps. What are those actions to take? And in this module, what we're going to be teaching you is how to go through, one, getting that creativity, going into the realistic plan, looking at what's missing, and then coming up with an actionable plan. I've got a bonus planned for you a little later that's going to be in the Big Vision Mastermind private members area and show you how to kind of manage and schedule all of these kind of moving pieces, how you can prioritize it and get these things done. And this is part of why I love working with Mikesh Sharma, my creative partner on this, because I call him Mr. Black Belt, because Mukesh is a Six Sigma Black Belt, and so he understands the processes and the structures and what are the actions and what are the goals, and that's why we're able to create so much so quickly. So Mukesh, I want to invite you right now before we go to this next thing, and you kind of said it in the introduction. What do you think stops people from taking action? Because everyone knows they need to do it. I don't think there are people who really believe in magic spells and that things would materialize in front of them. What do you think is really stopping them?
Well, first of all, like as the number of first point says, no ideas. So even though they think they have ideas or they want to go into certain direction, the moment they start, even sit down and write down the first step, which way, what action plan to make or which way to go, right away the doubts comes in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're not really sure that, do I really want to do this, or do I want to go this way, or this is the right action? And because of that confusion, now all of a sudden, as you pointed out, too many ideas, because now it's like, should I do this or that, and da 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 da. So too many ideas, and like in the lack of focus environment, they just could not sit down and put down the action steps. And because there are no action steps, nothing gets done. And because
Yeah.
nothing gets done, no outcome happens. No outcome
Right.
happens, they go into a stressful situations.
I agree. And one thing that I see really stopping people, actually, it's two things. One, they may have an idea to do something. Maybe they've got something that's in their background that's slightly like it, or maybe it's brand new, but they've always had an interest in it. They see somebody doing something and it lights them up. They get excited. They go, I really like that. I see the value in it. I enjoy doing that. And an example of that would be like podcasts, which are so hot right now, right? And people will say, when they say, oh, I would love to do this, but I've never done it before. I don't know anything about it. And I have to say that that is one of the number one excuse, because let's just go ahead and call it that. It's an excuse for not taking that action. Okay, not to criticize you right away, guys, but there's that thing, and you go, I don't know, I've never done it before. I look at the technology and it freaks me out. Well, you need to know that no one sprung forth fully formed from the womb, knowing how to do a podcast or set up a web page or understanding about Facebook or Twitter or knowing how to do a sales funnel. And to me, that's really encouraging, because this is stuff that people had to learn. And what you know how to do, even though you've never had experience in these other areas before, I want to bust that little bubble in your thinking right now before we go any further. You have the ability to learn. And you, and the wonderful thing about this is that sometimes the learning curve is longer, sometimes it's shorter, but when we learn from other people who have already done it, it makes it so much shorter. You're able to avoid the pitfalls, but we actually learn through relationship, not they're just trying to read and cram a lot of information in. And this is why we're having the Big Vision Mastermind. The other thing that I see stopping people is often there's something that they want to do, and they go, oh, then people are going to know me, or oh, I'm not worthy. I've never put myself out there. Maybe you're kind of an introvert and you think, and everybody's telling you what you have to do to be successful. Let's say, for example, is go out and give a speech, and you're deathly afraid of speaking in public. Now, that's not a problem I've ever had. My problem is get me in a big room with a bunch of people and try to go up and make friends. That is a skill that I've had to learn and develop. It's very uncomfortable for me. One on one, I'm great. Put me up on stage, I'm great. You put me in the room trying to mill around and make a friend, little daunting for me. I get a little social anxiety. So I have to be truthful with my strengths and weaknesses and my own personal preferences and say what works for me and how am I at my best. And I want to give you permission to do the things that you're best at. And then I want to encourage you to learn the things that are uncomfortable and start applying those. We get overwhelmed with all the stuff that we're supposed to do or what success is supposed to look like. And our little inner rebels are saying, no, that's not me. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. When that inner rebel actually wants to serve you and keep you honest, it wants to keep you in your truth, and it wants to actually keep moving you forward to new ground. So what I'm saying is, you want to create something that helps you shine and be the best version of yourself and create the thing that brings you joy and happiness. And believe it or not, most of your money is going to come from the thing that is the easiest for you to do, not from the thing that's the hardest for you to do. Okay, so this is the two ideas of what I want you to really get. One, you're able to learn, and two, give yourself permission to create success in a way that fits you. Okay, so hopefully I've busted a couple of your inner concerns about learning something new and creating something new, because there's a lot of opportunity right now. And I want you to be able to listen to your heart. So how can we do that? So let's move forward. I want to introduce you to, of course, we know this guy and his little friend, Walt Disney. And the process I'm going to be sharing with you is called the Disney Strategy. And it was created by a wonderful man named Robert Dilts, who is he's like this premier neurolinguistic, it's also called NLP modeler, which means that when this particular modality came out about what we think and how our language is the reflection of our emotions and how we can model other people, that we have our own, let's say, models and structures of reality, and that we could actually copy somebody else's model for ourselves and adapt it as our own, then we would be able to have not only their abilities, but we might actually be able to build on their abilities and go to another level. Someone who is famous for this is Tony Robbins, but he learned it from the developers, Bandler and Grinder, and some of the people that they modeled was Mr. Walt Disney here, but then they modeled some of the world's most famous therapists and hypnotherapists and all the great leaders of the day. And most of the successful people that you will come across, the top performers, have learned NLP and they're applying it. It's used in communication courses, building rapport, changing negative beliefs, creating empowering states, and it's an amazing process. And it's one of probably one of the most powerful tools that I get to work with, and it's had the most profound effect on my life. And so this process that Robert Dilts modeled with Walt Disney, the question was, what is the difference between creative people and non-creative people? And really, it's only one thing. The creative people think of themselves as being creative. And then non-creatives go, no, I'm not really creative, I'm analytical. But we're all creators. We're made in the image of a creator. Every day we're creating solutions. every day we're visioning and getting new information and having an effect on the world. So Robert Dilts had this question, and he said, who is the person that is not only an amazing creative person, but he was able to take all these creative people, get them to work together, and then be able to create systems, take action, and produce amazing results that people have never seen before. So when he went to go meet Mr. Disney, he went to his offices there in Anaheim, and turns out Mr. Disney had 3 offices. And what he did was he would take his creative team and say, we want to create a movie. And we have all these great fairy tales and we have all these stories, and we want to create a movie that's about 90 minutes long. But other than that, we really don't know what to do with it. So he would take them into this room and they'd say, this is the room, and they'd call it the dreamer position, okay, the dreamer. And in this room, there was nothing but just ideas popping around. No idea was too big or stupid or undoable or unrealistic. Every idea, they just would write them all out, and they had this big whiteboard or chalkboard at the time, and they would just write and write and write every idea down. And in this room, they were not allowed to say, no, we can't do it, it can't happen, the technology doesn't exist, none of that. Only dreaming. And I want to talk about why that's important in a minute. Once they had pretty much come to the end of all of their ideas, and they documented all the ideas, then they would go into the next room. And then they'd say, well, realistically, out of everything that we have and what plans we have for the year and what fits with the Disney brand and everything else, of these, realistically, what can we do next? And then what could we maybe do later? So they would look at what skills and resources and technology they had, and then they would start looking at the different projects. They'd get the consensus. They'd say, well, out of all of these, are we going to talk about Pinocchio, the little wooden boy, or are we going to do another fairy tale? What do we do? And then people would start, talking about it, and they'd say, realistically, here's what we can do. And they'd come up with, that could work, and they'd start kind of hashing it out a little bit. Well, what's the first thing we do? And well, what would we need? And then, well, what would that look like when we're through? Right? All these good practical things. How many teams would we need? How many writers? What kind of budget are we looking at? This budget we have, we're capped out at this much, so maybe for this one we aren't going to bring in the special technology. So they could start deleting. And then there was still kind of some space for negotiating, and then they could start talking about, but nobody was allowed at this point to interject a new idea or to criticize or say why something couldn't work. Everything needed to be kept in the positive. And once they felt like, this is a pretty good plan, we like it, looks like we could do this, it's hit all of our criteria, we have everything we need to make it happen, then they'd go into the third room. And then they would go into what he called the critic. And that's where it would be, it's like, well, why can't we do this? What would be the problem with this? What have we not looked at yet? Now I want to talk about this critic for just a second. So often there is something that needs to be dealt with that if you're in the wrong mode and you don't want to be criticized or hurt, sometimes you won't even say, look, I see this problem happening here. Or if there is a problem, you take it a little too personally and you shut down rather than saying, okay, there's an issue here. we need to look at this. The role of the critic is to protect the integrity of the project and take care of everyone involved. So the way to think about this is in these different roles, the critic is the one, if you were building an airplane, you would not want him when you're in there drawing up the blueprints, when you're in your fantasy mode and you're creating airplanes with 4 wings and a helicopter on top and plush luxury seats in the swimming pool in the back and all of that stuff. That's not where you want him. The realist would say, that's a lot of tonnage, and what may be more efficient, and what we've found in the laws of flight, that 2 wings are actually better than 4. So let's bring those down, and that'll keep us under budget, and we could actually use our money and our resources in a little better way and give more bang for the buck. And instead of putting the money in the wings, let's put it in the plush, comfy seats, or make sure that we have the best engines, landing gear. Let's spend a little extra money on the tires, right? Realistically, the cost of production isn't going to be in line with what we have to do. But then once you hammered out what plane could work and what help meet all of your objectives, then once you get that far and you go, we like it, we want to do it, we got an approval from everybody, then you take it to the critic. And the critic is the one who says, you know what, the screws that you're looking at for the amount of weight and the air pressure is not going to work. You need vulcanized rubber for the tires, and you did not put in a GPS system, and by the way, there's no rudder. Okay? Is that anything personal? It is not. But if you try to put the critic in at the time of the creativity, then you will not really be able to get a full realization of your vision. You want to allow it to be silly and unrealistic. Then just open yourself to all the possibilities so that some new information can come in. So often we try to figure everything out while we're in the creative mode, and this is what's stopping you. And so what we're going to be teaching you is how to use these positions. Now, normally, if I were to work with you one-on-one in this, we would be working as partners, and I would have 3 sheets of paper, and I would be having you lay out 3 sheets of paper, because this is the technical term is a kinesthetic anchor, which means that it's a physical anchor. It's almost like a physical anchor would be if you need to think. Sometimes the only way you can think is standing up and walking around. You can't really think sitting down. Or if you need to remember something, you put your hand on your chin. That's a kinesthetic anchor. Okay, and that's a hypnotic and NLP term. But what we're going to use is, I'm going to explain this to you, and Mikesh, hi Mikesh, has agreed to be my partner. Are you there, Mikesh?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and Mikesh has napkins. Now, he's from Canada, so he keeps calling them tissues. But Mikesh is going to use some napkins from his favorite restaurant, and I wanted you to tell people about these little napkins that you have and why you like keeping these napkins in your office and what you really use them for instead of what the restaurant gave them to you for.
Yeah, like at every restaurant I go, I take actually extra napkins and bring them to my office, because even in the office when I'm having a meeting, I form this habit to start drawing or writing on the napkins. Mm-hmm. Because not sure if anybody has seen there's actually a book called the napkin something, the back of the napkin, and it's at the napkinacademy.com. The gentleman did a lot of business on the napkin, and I'm doing that too. And this dreamer, like this is very good to do on napkin because you can sit anywhere, like any restaurant. A lot of time we have spare time, and you can put your dreams on these napkins and just fold it and put it back in your book or notebook or bag or whichever way, and then you can explore it further at your workplace or home place.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about something about that ballpoint pen on the napkin. It just looks better. I like writing on napkins too. Um, I shared with Mikesh a little earlier when we were talking about this that for years I wrote on restaurant the paper placemats. They were my favorite thing to write on, and I don't know, there was something about the quality of the paper or being in the space. And I have a lot of notebooks, and I keep one down to, I'm always writing in my spiral notebook every day, but there is something about putting that idea on that little scrap of paper, having those, and at the same time it's like it gives you a freedom. So what we're going to do is, if you have stickies or little pieces of paper, or maybe you're like me, Kesh, you like to keep napkins. We have allergies in Texas, so we use those very differently. We make sure we have a lot of napkins in our car all the time. But I want you to get 3 pieces of paper, and I'm going to explain to you in a minute what we're going to do. Mikesh has agreed to be my partner because we're going to do a demonstration of how this works after I get this explained. Okay? So on the 3 pieces of paper, you're going to write the word dreamer, and we have this in your handouts too. We're going to have the word realist, and then the third one is critic. But you also, if you don't like the word critic, if you just have a visceral negative feeling about it, write critique. Critique. Okay? Or analyzer. But that's what Mr. Disney called it, and so we just stayed with him. Okay, so as you look at these pieces of paper, right now let's start with the dreamer. And I want you to think about, like, a lot of people in the morning when they wake up first thing, they just have a lot of vivid dreams and great ideas. But have you ever had a time that you just really felt like you were creative and in the flow? And when you think about that feeling, I want you to take your piece of paper or your napkin or your sticky, whatever you have, and on the surface in front of you, put it down where it belongs. It may be directly in front of you, to the left, to the right, just wherever it belongs for you personally as you think about dreaming where that belongs. And it may match what's on the board here, or it may not. Okay, so Mikesh, did you get your dreamer paper set down?
Yeah, it's all set down since logical mind is a copycatter. So basically, my hands went a similar pattern, like the dreamer on the
Okay,
left, and realistic on the middle, and critic
okay,
on the left side. Sorry, dreamer
all
on the
right.
right side. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now there's that time that you've been realistic. So let's just think about a time that hey, it is what it is, that feeling. Realistic, we've got to do A, B, and C, and then we can go to the next thing. And just think about being in that feeling. And when you get that down, when you get that, put your sticky or your napkin, your little piece of paper down there.
Okay.
And then finally, on the time that, when you really could go into that super analyzer, when you would go, you know what, I see what you're trying to do, and here's what you're missing. Where you could really think about strengths, you could see the missing piece, and it almost may even feel like you're kind of an observer and you can kind of move yourself around. I notice, like, when I'm in that critique, I just know it just goes down in my body, and I probably feel it before I intellectually know it. But for this, we really want to look at, here's why it's not going to work, and to be able to exactly lay out step by step based on your experience.
Yep.
You're right-handed or left-handed?
Me right-handed.
So if you're with your right hand, and because I want you to use the same one each time, I want you to go into that dreamer mode first. Yeah, you're
Okay.
right-handed. Good. So just go into that dreamer mode. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you have to think about, tell yourself, or remember in order to really just get into that creative flow of being able to put silly things together. And in fact, just deepen that feeling of being a creative. And if for those that are listening, you may notice that there's a little pressure on your forehead. I want to encourage you to massage that forehead. And just do it in a circular way. Just notice if it feels better left or right, clockwise or counterclockwise. That's your third eye, so that you can get a little visioning. Okay, good. So right now, in this space, just breathe into, I am a creative person.
I am a creative person.
And now repeat after me. I am now a creative person.
I am now a creative person.
And then the third one is, now I am a creative person.
Now I am a creative person.
Breathe into that. Good. Now that's our I am manifesting positive statements. And you may actually feel a little energy moving through your body as we're opening up your creative channels.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yep.
Okay. Now when you lift your hand off of the dreamer, I want you to do a little clap. Okay, great. And what that's doing, that's called breaking state. And right now you're in a neutral position. Okay? So right now, wherever you are, I want you to just kind of look around the room and just kind of notice the colors and the atmosphere of the space you're in, and just simply observe it. A couple of deep breaths. And this is neutral. And something that may help you feel neutral when you find that you get overloaded with information. Is it okay if I over deliver a little bit here?
Oh, yes.
If right now, as you're looking around and you're simply noticing and observing your space, you probably feel very calm. Just notice how your body feels centered and relaxed. Right now, I want you to press with your right hand, your middle finger and your thumb together. Take a big breath. Good, relax your hand. And you may notice that you feel even more relaxed. And as you feel even more relaxed, bring your thumb and your forefinger together. Again. Take a big breath. And then you may be able to observe more in your space, and just simply notice, like, if you could see your feet, if you're barefoot or wearing shoes or just your socks, just take a look around, holding your thumb and your forefinger together, and you're simply noticing. Another big breath, and then relax your fingers. Nice. This will bring you into neutral and observing, and a lot of times therapists use this if person is telling a really difficult story, and the therapist doesn't want to get lost in the emotions or the roundabout of the story or anything, that they need to be able to stay neutral and simply observing what's happening. And that's what this is. So this is just neutral. So anytime that you find that your mind's going too fast, or there's just, you're in a little overwhelm, all you have to do is bring your thumb and your forefinger together and take a big breath now. And every time that you notice that you're kind of neutral, just push your thumb and forefinger together, and that will anchor it and make it go deeper. Is
Uh,
that something that'd be helpful?
yeah, I just want to point out that if some people are already aware of the anchoring and they are already using for some other anchor for the relaxation or something, they
Mm-hmm.
can use some other finger as well.
Right, right. Yeah. So we just anchored in at neutral. So we want to use that because sometimes when you're doing this exercise, you'll find that you go all the way into the dreaming and then you slip over into the realist. For the purposes of this, we want to make sure that you are going from state to state. I want you to think about Walt Disney taking his people from room to room and really letting them be fully in each state. And this is what we're doing with you. He could have locked him in a boardroom and said, nobody's, here's your cookies and water, and nobody's coming out until we have an idea. Right?
Yeah.
But he wanted people to really be able to expand and go and bring out their genius in each of these parts. And these are actually different parts of our brain. And that's why the papers need to be in different places. You place the papers where they belonged, not where I told you to place them. So you're actually accessing different parts of your own brain neurology, part of your own brain map on how you solve problems. Okay, so you're ready to go to the realist? So now I want you to think about a time that, you're realistic. You go, okay, today I want to get in the car, I want to drive someplace. Oh, I need to check the gas, right? And before we can jump in the car, we probably need to get dressed and make sure we've, fed the animals and we've got some things to take care of. So just let yourself go into that realistic mode. And the thing is that what I love about the word realistic is what's realistic for one person isn't necessarily realistic for another. But if it is realistic for someone to achieve great things, isn't it cool to think that if it's realistic for them, maybe it could be realistic for us? Maybe we could have different levels of expectancy, different levels of cooperation. Maybe we have more resources available to us than what's in our own sphere. Like maybe we don't have to know everything. So realistically, it is possible to learn more than what we know right now, to rent what we need to know, to hire what we need to have done. So let's just go ahead and allow ourselves to expand what is realistic. Good. So now just bringing your attention to your, we've gotten in the heart before. I want to kind of tune into the belly a little bit. Okay. So right now we're going to just deepen this state. So repeat after me. I am realistic.
I am realistic.
I am now realistic.
I am now realistic.
Actually, let me correct that. I am a realist.
I am a realist.
I am now a realist.
I am now a realist.
Now I am a realist.
Now I am a realist.
Breathe into that. And just allow that sense of capability to expand and grow within you right now. Sometimes being a realist or realistic is just a matter of having enough information. So let's just right now make the decision that we're going to open ourselves to allowing information to come in as we need it. Is that all right? Can we just come to an internal agreement that we can allow what information we need to arrive as we need it or before we need it? I always like for it to arrive when I need it.
Yes.
Hmm. Oh, that one felt good. I liked that. And if you're noticing, all we're doing is having an idea and we're accepting it. And what I do is I almost like to grab that idea and pull it right into me. Because I'm very much a feely person. If you're analytical, you might go, "Oh gosh, Kathryn, the statistics have proven that this is available. There was a report on this before. People are doing it. It can be done." But if you're a feeler like me, you need to actually kind of motor drive this a little bit. And then if you get over analytical, it might help you to drop into the system that is the weakest for you because there's so much power and information in that system. Okay? You are probably getting internal feeling signals, but they're so subtle that you don't really pay attention to them, but it may look like curiosity for you that something caught your eye, something that you noticed, okay? Something that you were suddenly curious about, maybe even were agitated about it. And those are actually signals from our deeper unconscious, okay? So it's not all just the power of the mind. It's the power of all your minds. Okay, so now we're going to come back to being neutral. Bring your thumb and forefinger together. Bring your hand straight up and bring that thumb and forefinger together. Look around your room again. Okay, great. How's that feeling, Mikesh? Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next one, into that critic, the critique, that analyzer. Okay, and so right now, just think about being in that critic mode. Now, what I love about the critic is, hey, it is or it isn't. We have percentages. We have standards and measurements. We're able to use our discernment. We understand not only black and white, but we are able to successfully interpret the gray shades. And to me, the image that comes to mind is like a measuring cup. There's a time that it's a half a cup, and then there's times it's a 3/4 cup. And we've got to get those measurements right, and we want them to be on that right line. Now, guys might not necessarily measure that. Maybe we could think about a tire gauge or a timing belt, or if we're measuring something. So, Mikesh, when you're in that really super analytical mood, what's something that you make sure you get the right measurements on?
Well, it depends on few categories which we defined earlier. Like, is it the our timing, like how soon we want to finish it, or is it the within the budget, or is it the quantity or quality? Like, so we look at those, different criterias, and most
Okay.
of the time it is that this product needs to be, or this process needs to be done within this time frame, within this budget, and naturally almost like a, um very good quality output.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So it's pretty easy for you to go into that critical
Oh
thinking.
yes,
So,
yes.
okay. Yeah, so right now you probably feel super relaxed going, great, I have things to measure. We could
Yeah.
create charts and tables.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, like see at the end of the day, like for example, we used to ship parts to Ford, GM, Chrysler, and Nissan, Japan, and the criteria was very simple: zero defect part reached to this customer.
Yeah.
That was it. that was a policy, zero defect. So now, like that does not mean that we will have the scrap produced in the plant, but the main goal was that the detection mechanism has to be there. So this is how, like, when we are operating our normal day-to-day business, somebody could be doing some courses or healings or selling a product or different scenarios. But the so what is our goal, what is our output, and are we achieving those goals, because that's what we originally had a dream about. And then we become realistic, and now we are in the critical mode,
Very
as a
good.
as a critic of that.
hmm Very good. So we've gotten those feeling states. So I wanted to get those elicited first because I have the handouts. Thank you for that, by the way. I loved that. Okay, so let me come on to here. So I found these beautiful images. So I want to talk just a little bit more about each state. Then we're going to actually do a little brainstorming, Mikesh, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to give an example of it, and then we're going to actually do some brainstorming, okay? So some of the questions that when we're in the dreamer that we like to ask are, what are you trying to make or achieve? And what excites you and inspires you about it? And if you could wave a magic wand and do anything you like, what would you like to create? How would it look? Notice there's no cost involved, that you don't have to win the lottery here, you don't have to do anything. Just allow yourself to have the thoughts and the ideas about it. And what could you do with it? And how would that make you feel? This is really a deep feeling state. You want to create a lot of excitement. You want to blow it up. So an example would be, worked with someone who had a dream to create a karate studio, which was already kind of outside of their comfort zone. But we needed to move them out beyond that dream a little bit. And so it's like, okay, so now you've got this amazing karate studio. Then what's the next thing you do? And we blew it up to where she developed this whole chain. And then she could develop her practitioners and everything else. And she said, you know what? I never thought of that. I was so focused on everything to just get this one little thing. I didn't realize I even wanted all of that stuff. And when she realized that she had a bigger dream, that changed her search criteria for one, where she would be, but then two, it was like, you know what, I have to make this happen, not just because it's something that would be exciting for me, but I really see how I could make a big impact in the world, and I loved the feeling of that, and I want to make a big difference because she was all about empowering youth and women, and she hated that older people were victimized, and she really wanted to empower as many people as possible. And when we got her into this dreamer mode, the truth of her dream arrived. So no matter what your dream is, allow it to get bigger, expand it out, expand it out, expand it out. Nothing is silly, nothing is off the table at this point. So then we have the realist.
Excuse me, sorry.
Oh,
Can
go
you
ahead.
just go
I'm
go
sorry.
back to the previous slide, please? Yeah, I
hmm
would like to, like, as it's so good, Catherine. Thank you very much. And like, what are you trying to make or achieve? Like, I'm going to use as an example. Like, I'm in process to write a book, and it will be the book of stories which are, like, we heard in childhood, and those are, like, like a thirsty crow, or so different stories. So what are you trying to make or achieve? Yes, I want to complete my book, which is almost like 50-60% done. And
hmm
then next one is, what excites and inspire you about it? What excites me about it, like, it's going to be my first printed published book.
Right.
And inspiration is that this book is going to revolutionize the whole kind of the environment around me. Let's put it this way. That's the best I can describe.
Uh-huh.
If you could wave a magic wand and do anything you like, what would you create? How would it look? Right now, I would, if I had a magic wand, I would make it zoom, finish the whole book.
Well, you'd hire somebody to get it done. Well, right now you're trying to go through the process with me right now, and I want to
Yeah,
get you. I want to hold that to the end. Is that okay?
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you got excited. Mikesh is on board with this. You weren't sure at the start of what we were doing with all this dreamer stuff, but you keep getting excited about it. I like that. So now we're going to go into the realist mode, and these are the type of questions. And again, I have them in your handout. So, what resources do you need to make this happen? Like people, money, materials, technology. Now, at this point, you might not have the $100,000 that your dream needs. This is not where you think about that right now. If it is just a consideration, if you've got that kind of dream inside of you, and you go, well, you know what, I really want to do it. It's exciting. Like we think about Mukesh and his book, but we've got the lady in her karate studio. And it's like, well, what resources? Well, she realized when she really got into that dreamer that this was something she was trying to do all by herself, and she realized she needed to build a team and who the key players were. And then she said, you know, there are sponsors. There's actually advertising money that I could get because there's handouts and flyers, and I could actually see, she could actually see more streams of income once she got here. And that's why it's so important to be able to be in that creative mode. And we're going to talk about that because coming back to this slide, I want to just, coming back to this slide right here, um, notice that this is a cycle. So when you hit a roadblock, you keep moving forward. But then once you've got your working plan, then you're going to come back to the creative mode. So this keeps, you keep this going the whole time. Okay, so just keep moving forward. That's your motto. Whoop, there we go. Um, what's your plan? What obstacles will you face? How will you get around them? It is, you know, the realist will say, look, we know that we're going to have some obstacles. And you might actually say, you know, people might say no. I need to have a script ready on how to answer objections, which is what salespeople do. Your own objections and fears may arrive, that you may be going great guns, and then one day you wake up and you think, I must be insane. I can't believe I'm doing this. Whatever made me think I could do this? And that happens to each and every person who's ever done anything, ever. In fact, I know that about the time I hit that wall and it says, what the heck am I doing? I'm in over my head. I shouldn't do this. I know I'm really close to a breakthrough. So you need to plan in advance how you're going to deal with your own doubts and fears, what you're going to do if you get down during your project, because it's going to happen. We all hit our highs, we all hit our lows. And you need to have your plans in place for that, and that's what the realist does. Okay, so just think about how will you get around it, and allow yourself to come up with every scenario at this point of things that you may encounter, okay, or something that stops people. And this is a kind of a side teaching, is let's say that in the past they've tried to create some projects and they ran into a lot of obstacles, and now they want to create something new. Well, what happens for most people, they'll say, ugh, usually what happens is things start breaking down. The technology acts up on me. The people who said they were going to be there suddenly disappear. The money runs out, or my timing is off. That's what's happened in the past. That's a fear, and what you have to a way to really overcome that is to say, up until now, or what's happened in the past, and that did happen in the past, but it doesn't really have anything to do with now, because since then I have learned this new thing. Okay? Now I know I can't do everything by myself. Now the technology exists. Don't give in to that. And one phrase that James Altucher, who's one of my favorite people, he wrote the book Choose Yourself. What he says is when those thoughts come up, is he says, it's not useful. It's not useful information now. So if you have information that comes up or questions that come up, even while you're in this realist mode, you could go, you know what? It's not useful to think about that right now. Let's keep moving forward. What can we do now? What's available to us now? Right now we're older, we're wiser. Stay present and be thinking to the future. From your present place, moving to the future. Okay? And only let your experience be something that supports your future dream. Do not let your negative experiences be something that stops you. Only allow those past experiences that support your future dreams to float up and be heard. Okay? Then we have the critic. And I use the image of the magnifying glass. Like, we're going to really put this plan under the magnifying glass. We're going to look at up and down and look at these systems. So at different critical stages of the project, you're going to step back from your work and you're going to ask yourself, well, how does this look? What about the big picture? So that's maybe coming up when they talk about the big picture. Sometimes they'll say, you know what, I want to go up and get a 100-foot view of this. And the reason they're using this kind of language is you're coming up it more into the mental state and up into that third eye. And you want to be able to kind of come up into this big picture visioning. Okay? So how does it look? How's the big picture? Very visual mode, right? A fine detail. And how do I feel when I examine it? Now this is important because your internal feeling state will tell you something's off, and pay attention to it. Okay? This is the place where we really let that critic nitpick to death every little piece. But what is not allowed is to nitpick and criticize you as a person. Can we make that rule? Break the plan apart, tear it apart, destroy it. But never speak negatively to yourself about yourself during this process. You're not allowed to say that you're stupid or you're a failure or you can't do it. There's no room for that talk here. This is strictly about the facts that are at hand now. Breathe in. We're going to do a little piece because I know that some people kind of deal with that inner critic. But stick with the facts at hand. Okay? So how would it look to a customer or a user? I've been fussing with my website. Going, I hate the way this looks. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. Today was the first time, after I've worked on it just this afternoon, using this Disney strategy, by the way, that I was able to get the key pieces and I got the information. It was like, it doesn't look clean and bright enough, but it doesn't have the money element that I want on there. How would it look? What do I want the experience of my customer to be? And so you put yourself in your customer's shoes and move yourself through your own system and see what works and doesn't work. This is no place for excuses. Every criticism, every weakness just needs to be dealt with forthrightly. Now, just as there's no room for criticism about yourself, if you've had customers that have complained about how you've delivered something, you don't get to criticize them, because often when people are complaining, they're actually trying to help you and give you useful information. Okay? So if they go, my customers aren't liking this experience, it's not because they're whiners and complainers. Their job is to be served by you. And their job is to be their own advocate, and they want to have the best value for their money. That's their job. Okay? So get that clarity on the roles. I don't know who that's for, but somebody needs to hear that. But allow yourself to be in that neutral position. And if this gets hard, you feel yourself shutting down, then what you do is you actually move off of this position and bring yourself back to neutral. At any point, if you find that you get overwhelmed or overloaded, bring yourself back to neutral and then come back in. Okay? All right. So then you go, is this the best we can do? How can we make this better? Just like Mukesh said with his old company, it was, what was the policy? 0 defects. That was the standard. And what are your standards? And this is where you really get to define what it is you want to create, what is integrity for you, what your reputation is going to be. And this is the things that you need to do in order to honor and preserve your reputation. Okay? And this is all about keeping things moving smoothly for you in integrity in your relationship with your potential customers or the things that you want to do. Okay? So once you run into any blocks on this section, you come back to being neutral. Then you go back to the creative and you start dealing with every criticism that you came up with. Okay? So, Mukesh, I want to get some feedback now because we're going to be going into those steps in a minute. If there was anything to add or anything I shouldn't,
No,
I'm going
this
to have
is
you be the advocate
yeah,
for the
yeah.
listener.
No,
Yeah.
this was pretty explanatory and pretty clear.
Okay, good. All right, very good. So, I actually have the circles on here in a different position than what we initially put out. But again, your papers may be in this room, but you're going to always start with the dreamer. Okay? And so then we've got the 3 positions. This is standing, but you're looking at the papers on your desk. We're kind of using our hands. So I want to give a little example of kind of what this would look like. And you've got a worksheet. And what we have are, and this is like a sheet of paper that's on its side, and there's 3 columns. And if you can't have somebody writing for you, it kind of helps to record yourself. I have a Mac, and I just found out on my Mac, I have 2 things I can use to record. I have QuickTime, or I have my movie maker. I have iMovie. I could also record with the screen, okay? And a lot of people have webcams that they can record themselves. Mukesh, you have a PC. What are things that, if someone has an ordinary PC, what's some things that they could use to record themselves if they wanted to be able to kind of listen to themselves going into that wild dreamer mode?
Well, Windows, I believe in somewhere in the accessories there is a like a recorder feature, so you
Okay,
can record it there. I used it long time ago, and it is there. But
okay.
I use Camtasia Studio, and but there are, like, if you search, there are some very simple and like you can say very reasonably priced some softwares where you can record your own webcam as well,
Mm-hmm.
and or just the audio only. So
And there's, of course, apps on your phone. Like I have an Android or the iPhones. They have apps for that. And then there's free conference calling lines, and the one I use is freeconferencecalling.com, and you could actually, dial in and talk on the phone while you're going through this. So some people, they can't really stop to take notes while they're doing it. Some need to take notes, and so I'm giving those suggestions so that if you need to be more in the free-flowing verbal, to just let yourself, record the pieces, go through it, then go back and take notes. Some people take notes as they do it.
yeah, actually, like I use my iPhone quite a bit. I have an app called iTalk,
Mhm.
and like a lot of time during my driving, that's where a lot of creative ideas comes, or
Yeah.
during a go for a walk, and I just let turn it on and put it in my pocket and just keep talking to myself,
Yeah.
and when I come back, I just turn it on and make the notes out of it and put it on my whiteboard, and then prioritize it the way, like, because those are the actions of dreamer,
Yeah.
and then we look at it, how realistic it is, or what does it needs to be make it realistic, and then in our critic point of view, like, is it worth it, how much investment it is, like, how much is a time investment, how much is a money investment,
Mhm.
and then we become critic and to find a solution. So I like this, gadgets.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so just a little example on what it would look like when we go through the process when you're first in the dreamer. Let's say we want to take a trip, okay? And we're going to write down every crazy thing first. Like there's all the possible ways we could take trips. Now, now we pretty much have our own little inner criteria. Hey, if it's within 300 miles, I'll drive it. If I have time, you know, or I'll fly. It depends on what the function is and how much time we have. But we're just going to go ahead and let ourselves get creative with this. We're going to use just the example of a trip. So if we were in the dreamer mode, we would say, "Oh, I want to be in a big jet airliner, flying first class." Or, "Ooh, I know. Wouldn't it be cool if we were in like a hot air balloon? Or why don't they have zeppelins anymore? Can we do that? Or maybe we could take a train. Maybe that'd be a fun trip to take. Maybe we need to take the train because there's not good air service there. We going to drive? Maybe we're not going to take our regular car. Let's rent a luxury car so we're more relaxed. Or we could take a bus. And now they have these super shuttle buses. Mikesh, have you heard of these? They're having them down here, and it's a new company, and it's like big plush luxury seats with recliners, and you can kind of push the recliner back and sleep a little bit. They've got Wi-Fi. There's a bar on the bus and television. It's a big double decker, and people are like getting on these buses to do creative work and everything because they can just get on the bus and relax and get away from their regular life. And then they make all these stops all over. Doesn't that sound fun?
Oh yeah, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, I was like, heck, I'm gonna go. Okay, and then there's, of course, we have good old teleportation. It's like, oh, I don't want to mess with air travel. Let's just figure out if we could go ahead and teleport there. And the realist is already going, ah, that's ridiculous. But we have to allow ourselves to be silly. Okay. Then win a contest. All right. So that was all the ways I could think of how to take a trip to get from point A to point B. So then we're going to be realistic. We go, well, okay, we can fly. Yeah, it's like, well, first class, maybe. We got to look at our budget, right? Let's get our travel dates set, and let's check our bank balance. So then we've got steps 1, 2, 3, 4 to take, right? If you were in your realistic mode, Mikesh, and you need to take a trip, and on deciding what are some other steps you would take as a realist on getting your flight together.
Well, like I would even look at the option to drive, because
Okay.
once I drove from Toronto to Florida, so I won't. I didn't do it after that. Next time
Yeah.
we flew it,
So
but
that one. Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
we did that. We did that. So the thing is, realistically, we look at all the different options. Like like what else can we do, what is feasible, so called, and
Yeah.
sometimes we look at even what is, like, at that time actually we don't even question the feasibility. We just say that, like, can, like, this is how we could do it, let's put it this way. or present it as Disney did. Somebody would have. I'm pretty sure somebody would have sketched the Mickey Mouse, his shoes and his back and everything, and he say, "Oh, maybe it could look like that, right?"
Yeah,
And then they say, "Wow, looks cool, man. Let's make it."
right. So we've gone to the realist. Thank you for that. We've gone to the realist. Now we go. Well, now we got to critique. We got to look at some real. We got to like why this could or couldn't work, or what's something we're overlooking. So it's like, okay, we're going to take a trip, but if we're going to fly, we've got to deal with ground transportation to and from the airport. What are we going to do for transportation while we're there? First class seems too expensive, and it could take too long to look for deals. So, and get real with your budget. So the critic is saying, you haven't really looked at your budget or your money because you've got some expenses and things. You're so concerned about getting there, you haven't thought about what you would do next once you get there. So that's coming up. So then it would be, oh, transportation to and from the airport. I hadn't even really thought about that. I don't know if it has a shuttle. So then we would come back to what would be a creative solution. Okay? And then we just keep working it until we have a good working plan. And then what happens at the end of this is you come back at each and every part, because you actually are kind of connecting into each part of you, and you take the plan once it's complete, and you go to the dreamer, and you go, is there anything else about this plan that I need to that you want to add to it that I didn't think about? And you get this kind of internal yes or no. Then the realist part goes, yep, I'm good. And then when that critic is good, then you know that you have what's coherence or alignment, because these are actually different parts of your brain. You're connecting into your emotional body, the visual, but it has to align also to your bigger purpose or mission inside. Okay? So we do a final check on there. All right. So Mikesh, do you want to play?
Okay.
All right. So you started talking about your book. Is that what you want to play with right
Yeah.
now as far as going
Yes.
through the exercise?
Yes.
Okay. So let's come into the dreamer first. And I'm going to make sure that you've got your hand on the piece of paper that is the dreamer mode. Get yourself anchored into there.
Yeah.
And I'm a terrible partner because I'm not writing this down, but if I were your partner in real life, I'd have my tablet and I'd be your secretary. Okay, and my job is to be your encourager. I've got the basic checks, the basic questions here, but I'm going to probably leap off of these a little bit. So, what is it you're trying to make or achieve?
To write my book.
Okay, good. And what is it that really excites you and inspires you about it?
Because it's takes me to the dreamland, and that how those stories are inspiring a normal business person in day-to-day life, and they are
Okay.
inspiring me as a person in day-to-day life as an entrepreneur actually.
One thing you keep saying that the question's not here, but there's this excitement when you say, when I go to a business meeting, I'm going to have my book in my hand, and I'll be able to say, here's my book, I did it, and I can help you too, right?
Yes, yes, yes. That's one of the good feeling, because I could walk into anybody's office even, and then like they say, oh, which book is that? Oh, this is mine, have a look at it. And not even, I don't need to tell them have a look at it, they will look at it. And wow, you are an author, yes, you can be too as well. So that's what I want to encourage people, that they can be an author as well.
Very good. Okay, so so if you could wave a magic wand, so you've got that one book, but let's blow that up a little bit. If you could create anything, then what would you create once after that book?
Well, then, my wish is that every month another book.
Okay.
Even if I may be a co-author with somebody, some other people, or even as a collaboration book where there are different authors with on the common ground kind of thing. But because the goal here is the motivation goal is to provide some life direction to the other fellow entrepreneurs.
Okay, very good. All right, so does that feel pretty complete on the creative part?
Yes.
All right, very good. So now we're going to do the reality check. So what resources do you need to make this happen?
Like right now, the first resource is the people, because when you have a brainstorming partner, the output, becomes much better. And so that's what I'm looking for, like the people. Yes.
Okay. And is there any special materials or technology that you need?
Right now, no. Once this book is done from the creation point of view, yes, we are using the technology a bit, because there are a lot of images which we created, and then it will be published. Yes, that's where the technology is coming. And I actually, talking of the technology, I'm so glad that how faster they made it, rather than the old traditional way of compiling like each letter. Now it's like, it's much faster through the computer era.
Yes, very good. And so once you, let's say there's getting the book, then once you have the book, what's your plan with the book?
Well, there are a couple of things. Like each chapter, I'll be making the video of each chapter,
Uh-huh.
publishing those videos, and people can watch those videos. And the goal is that each video is going to be conveying a message to them, and that will interact with them. They say, "Oh, maybe I should read this whole book." So they will be buying more of my books through, Amazon or different ways, or through my website. And also, the goal is that each chapter is going to be providing them the clearing their inner own blocks, which they may be facing, or they may be interested to, well, you know what, I have more of these kind of things in
Okay.
myself.
All right. Very good. So what's the biggest obstacle you're facing on this?
Procrastination
Okay.
and distraction, and as we were talking earlier too, that how, we go off track the our action plan, because sometimes new things could pop in, and just we just go off track from our action steps if they are not really defined properly.
Yeah. Okay. So on the procrastination, how can you, I mean, right now I know it's summer, we both got a lot of family stuff going on, everybody's home, people flying in and out of town. What can you do to get around this procrastination issue?
Well, the again, it's the commitment. Like I'll be putting a big sign in front of my desk, saying that, is it done yet? And I'll put some one of my, like some person I kind of, there's always somebody you dislike slightly. I'll maybe put that person's photo on that, or some image of that, as if
Okay.
that person is asking me, are you done yet? you know
Okay.
so that I get it done as soon as possible.
Mikesh, who is somebody? Now, everybody's allowed to have like that one group, right? Or that one person, that one organization that you can't stand. Who's somebody that you just like, oh, these guys, they drive you crazy? Do you have anybody like that?
Well, the guy in the mirror, actually.
Okay, that guy in the mirror. Well, I wanted to give you a suggestion.
Yeah.
There was a woman, she was actually a very famous liberal,
Hmm.
and she was a Jewish lady, and she said, I have to stop smoking. And she kept procrastinating, and there was this reason why, and not yet, and she's too stressed, or there's too much going on this week. This wouldn't be a good week to stop. And finally, she said, you know what? I have to do this. If I don't stop smoking completely by August 1st, on August 2nd, I'm sending a check to the John Birch Society, which is
Yeah.
a very, hyper, you know, very far right wing. She said, I'm sending a check to these far right wing people, like the craziest, nuttiest people I could think of,
Yeah.
right? Um, or I'm going to mail, I'm going to donate money to a church, or or not a church, that's not good, but or a political organization or a candidate that you don't like maybe for you in your town, you're in Toronto, maybe you would say, I have to give $100 to the Mayor Ron Ford reelection fund. If you don't have it, right? And
Yeah.
nobody's going to do it with the money.
I know, I know, I know. I know, I know, I know.
But one thing, like you'd say, okay, if I don't do it by this date, because you don't quite have a big enough consequence is really the point. It's like there's got to be a pain of incompletion. Like if we don't get our work done on a regular job, what could happen? We could lose our job. Sometimes there's a bonus we're counting on, and we're not really doing it for the bonus as much as like we want to make sure we don't lose the bonus, right? So something you could do, because there's some people that need carrots and some people need sticks and some people need both, and you've got the pleasure of that book getting completed in front of you. What is a stick that you can put behind you to make sure you get it done?
I just have to tell my wife that I didn't finish it.
Oh, okay. Well, then what you need to do is have a completion date, right?
Yeah.
And say,
Now
this is the
the
day I'm having it done.
now this is good because in the sense that pain point of view, I have to think about it seriously, like what is the pain because you know yes, we tend to avoid the pain, but we tend more to lean toward the pleasure out of it. So
Yeah. But
uh,
some, like I said, some need both, and I need both. I know that that's true about me. Okay. So definitely want to take a look at that. We may have to go back to the creative and come up with something for you.
no, see the
Okay.
thing is, yeah, like on the point of being slightly on the you know path of holistic. I'm trying to, or not trying to. Like I'm on the path of uh, without pain. Let's put it this way. So
Mhm.
that's a, maybe it's a, we'll discuss it in some other terms. Maybe that's a, some other people might be feeling the similar challenge as a holistic
Right.
healers or holistic, spiritual people, because they are not, talking about pain. They're not, they don't want to, discuss pain. They don't want to, like even mention the word pain. But the thing is that then they are also not having the pleasure. So how they can have the pleasure without going through the walking through the pain? Yes.
Right. Right. Using that. Right. Okay. Perfect. All right. So now let's get to the critic. So right now, where are you at on your project? You said you were about what,
Like
60%?
around 60% done. Yes.
Okay. So so far with what you're seeing, how is it looking as far as like what you've seen so far?
Well, like the whole plan is very clear. Like it's the big picture is very clear. Fine details are clear. How do I feel when I examine it? I feel right now bad because I'm like I'm procrastinating.
Okay.
On the good part, like I feel good. I did took it to certain level, and but right now I'm feeling bad that I'm procrastinating it.
Okay. All right. So remember, we're not allowed to criticize ourselves. We're going to move back to the critique. So far with where you are at 60%, with the 60% that's done, are you happy with it?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Do you have a book cover yet or anything?
Yes, I have a book cover. Like
Okay,
again,
great.
like the book cover to the current level, and at the same time with a disclaimer that book cover is going to change once I finish the whole thing, because the
Hmm.
new new I call it new flower is going to form out of the brainstorming from the that 60% to the so-called 100%.
Okay, great. So now, just as you're kind of looking at this project of getting your book together, let's just kind of make sure we really get into the critic. Kind of move it around, look it around, and so is there something that you've been that you hadn't really been able to see because you were all dreaming or you were so busy dealing with the back end pieces and managing all that? Is there anything that you've missed on this project that is a key piece that needs to be dealt with?
Yes, the what I missed in this project, or what I as a critic, is that the in the like moral of the story or the conclusion of the story, I started to input the our three-part statement, and now this I am statement. So as a critic, I'm looking at, like, how I can really like, have I done the best out of it yet, or how can
Okay.
I do the better outcome from the each story's conclusion part, yet. That's the so it's like I'm a critic. I'm my own self-critical of this situation. And also, once I will be brainstorming, which is you, you will see that how this can be, this criticism, I call it constructive criticism, is going to yield the best output.
Okay. So missing kind of hinge piece, right? Like, how would that tie together? Is how I'm hearing that. Is that right?
Yeah.
You back yet?
Yeah, hi, sorry.
I don't know what happened. So there we go. Are you
Okay,
back?
yeah, I'm back now.
Okay.
I think the
Mikesh?
yeah, hi, hello.
Okay, now I think you're moving. Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm there here now.
Okay, there we go. We were doing so good. We're so close, and we'll just edit that piece out. Okay. So what I was saying was, it sounds like what you're missing is, yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm here. I hear you. What? Okay, good. So I'm going to go ahead and say this again, and we'll just edit it out. Okay. So, Mikesh, when I hear you talking about the book, what I hear you saying is that there's all these elements you put together, but you're kind of got this missing piece on how to tie it together.
Yeah,
Like how to tie together these statements with the story and the teaching that you want to have.
yeah,
Is that what's holding you up?
yeah. Right now, that's what is holding me up.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. All right. So that's something that needs to come back to the table, right? So that's, you've identified the piece that's actually holding. Yeah. It's not the technology or the stories or even like, okay, we need this artist or whatever. I think that that's the piece that's missing for you.
Yeah.
So when you think about it not tying together, not being able to fit all those pieces together, how does that feel?
Well, it frustrates me, like it upsets me.
Okay, good. Okay, so you're in that frustration, you're in the upset. Is it in your belly, your throat, or your head? Where do you
Belly,
feel that frustration?
belly.
Okay, good. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Come back to the meta position. Go ahead and anchor yourself into that calm, neutral space. And I want you to close your eyes and put your hands on your belly. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And just take a couple of deep breaths.
I just want to point out to everybody that they can put their hand on the wherever they are feeling the
Right.
different feeling.
You
Yeah.
may feel it on your heart, in your throat, in your head. Those are the four main areas. But if you're feeling it in your belly, so often we try to overcome it, fight it, deny it. But what I've found, and Mukesh and I working together, and what the hundreds of people I've worked with, is if you will close your eyes, look down, and be present to that frustration rather than arguing about it and trying to discharge the energy with complaining or, you know, criticizing yourself or any of that stuff, but just close your eyes, tilt your chin down slightly, and focus on the energy that you're feeling there. And it's only energy, okay? So just take a couple of deep breaths. And a very simple phrase is, I'm frustrated, but I'm not going to let it stop me.
I am frustrated, but I'm not going to let it stop me.
Breathe in. I can do this.
I can do this.
We can figure this out.
We can figure this out.
I don't have to do this alone.
I don't have to do this alone.
Breathe in. And then we're just going to let, like, your stomach is actually going to give you some information. So just as you're looking down, we're going to breathe in here, just kind of stay present. I want you to say, what I need to do in order to complete this project is,
What I need to do in order to complete this project is,
and what comes to mind.
mhm, plan, set up the time, and brainstorm and implement and get it done and be over with it.
Okay. So you need to make a real plan.
Yeah.
Like, does that include a schedule?
Yeah. Scheduling both with both parties, myself and in this case will be Catherine Perry.
Okay. All right. So getting it on the schedule, right?
Yeah.
Giving it the time it deserves,
Yeah.
giving it the energy and the consideration it really deserves.
Yeah.
Okay. And what else?
And actually do it.
Okay. And is there anything else you need in order to do it?
No, just do it.
Okay, good. Let's go back over to the creative.
Yeah.
So now the critic said, this isn't tying together. But now what needs to happen is we need to make sure that there's time and a schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot going on. So we want that creative part of you to give you some ideas on how you could better use your time to complete your projects, or what would be a great strategy to get things done faster. We're just going to let that creative part come up with an idea right now that will help you get the project completed.
Well, I could do my few reviews by myself and take it to the maximum point which I can do it myself.
Okay?
So this way the review time could be cut down or shorter
Okay?
because a lot of input is already there.
All right, perfect. Okay, what else? And if there's nothing else, we can move on to the real list.
Yeah, I think then
Okay?
it's just a matter of uh, following the schedule, and if there is a need to change the schedule, change it, and then get it done.
Okay. Now, I know this thought's coming up that you have your schedule and your family has their schedule, but do you and your family ever sit down and say, here's our schedules and here's everything that needs to happen this week? Or are you doing yours and theirs is kind of bumping in on your schedule?
Well, sometimes the conflict does happen. I'm not saying that, but we figure out which one is more important, and uh, then the second one wrap around it.
Okay. So do you guys sit down and look at your schedule for the month or the week and say, look, this is everything that's going on?
Most of the time, like a couple of weeks, yes.
Okay, very good. Okay. So then it'd be like this is a very high priority right now. And so how can you get support from your family on all the things that they need to do and that you need to do in order to keep your schedule?
Well, I just like the import, like I asked them, and like basically we have an open discussion,
Okay.
like and then we look at which one is more important, and then that takes priority.
Okay. Very good. So anything else you need, anything else does that the realist has to input to the process here?
Realistic is a realistic saying, be realistic and just get it done.
Okay, good. Now come back to the critic. Is there anything else that we need to look at?
Critic is saying that you will find another excuse not to do it, procrastinate it. So I challenge you to get it done.
So, oh, okay. So the critic's calling you on it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And so tell me something here for a second. Are you noticing that each one kind of has their own voice?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
Are any of them fighting or unhappy with each other?
No.
Okay. So now we've kind of gone through this, but what we promised was that you'd have a working plan at the end of this. So tell
Yeah.
me what your working plan is on this. So for the first step you're going to take is what?
Like the set up the schedule. Like sorry, now the first step is slightly changed. That I must review myself the whole book, and give it a thorough review and update it as much as feasible.
Okay.
And so that's the first step. And then second step is to have a discussion with Catherine Perry, and to have the brainstorming session timing set up, and depending upon her schedule,
Okay.
and then do it as per setup time, and if there is any change, then do it on that changed time.
And what date do you want this done by?
So today is 18th, So let's say, sorry, 19th. Oh, it's already 19th in my area. Sorry, guys. I'm in the Eastern Standard Time and it's already 12:23. So let's say 19th, say by 26th, it all needs to be done.
Perfect. By the 26th. Is that
Yeah,
realistic?
it is realistic.
Okay, perfect. And so by the 26th, you can have all your pieces done and then be able to be ready to send it to the editor.
Yeah,
Okay, very good. All right. Well, that's pretty much how the process works. What's your feedback on that process, Mikesh?
like
Because I don't think
one
you've
of
ever done this. Yeah,
yeah
go ahead.
one of the thing is important thing which I notice is that my hand is still on my belly, but as we were going through, as we were talking, the my the feeling shifted on it, like feeling shifted from like a so-called agitated or stressed feeling to a calm feeling and kind of cool feeling.
Good. Good. And all we did is we just became present to it. We didn't have to try to kill the fear. We didn't have to fight anything. We just let the energy kept moving forward. Okay, very good. Now, have you noticed that there's a particular phrase I've been using all the way through this? And it's this phrase right here. And it is from Mr. Disney. And it says, "Around here, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. So follow your curiosity." Um, this pretty much ends this portion. And like I said, you would stay with this until you come up with a good working plan. And then I do have another little bonus module that I'm going to be adding to this month's teaching on how in the world you can schedule all of this and get your priorities laid out, and how could you have multiple projects going at the same time and get them all completed. So we'll be talking about that. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on this program. And we'd love to get your feedback and questions that you have, because we want to create something that serves you and is valuable to you. And so if there's something that we can do better, if there's a question that you have, if there's a teaching you'd like to get that would help you fulfill your particular vision and mission and go out and make the impact in the world that you want to make, and make the money that you deserve to make, and live that life of fulfillment that is right here for you to have, please be sure and send a message to us at icpotentials.com. And then as a member, we are on the Facebook group. So we love to get your comments. If you've got inspirational quotes, things, your ahas, your revelations, strategies that are working for you, get them posted on there. Mikesh, before we go, do you have anything to add?
I wish to see all of you to become an author as soon as possible.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I've actually helped people get their books written, and I'm working on mine too. So
Yeah.
I think that I'm in the process of pulling together a bunch of articles and putting up my first book. So I'm really excited about that. So Mikesh, thank you so much for being my helper on this. I'm having so much fun with you.
Hey, thank you, Catherine. It's my pleasure, and thanks to all of the you who are watching, listening, or you are going to listen or watch later on. And we are all very grateful to all of you.
All right. Thank you, Mikesh. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Bye now.